Let me ask you something. What would you do if one day, a neighbor you barely know, suddenly claimed they had authority over your house, your yard, your very way of living? When you never agreed to any of it, imagine getting threats, fines, and even lawsuits for breaking rules you never signed up for. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And trust me, the ending of this story will make you want to cheer, because sometimes justice actually works the way it should. When I first moved into my little home, I thought I had found peace. The street was quiet, the houses weren't identical, and I specifically chose it because it wasn't under the thumb of a homeowners association. No endless rules about what color my shutters had to be, no ridiculous fines for leaving a trash can out overnight. Just freedom. For a while, life was calm. I spent my weekends working on my garden, planting tomatoes, painting my fence a shade of blue that I loved, and sitting on the porch with my dog. That's when she showed up. Her name was Linda, but everyone in the neighborhood called her Karen. She had this air of superiority, like she owned not just her yard, but everyone else's too. She strutted around with a clipboard, sunglasses perched on her head, and that smug little smile people wear when they think they're untouchable. At first, I brushed it off, but then came the letter, folded neatly in my mailbox, stamped with something that looked official. It said I had violated several community rules. My fence was the wrong color, my lawn was not trimmed to regulation height, and apparently, my dog barked too much. At the bottom, in bold letters, failure to comply will result in fines. I laughed out loud. I wasn't in an HOA. I never signed a contract, never agreed to dues, never once checked a box that said someone like Karen could dictate my life. I tossed the letter in the trash, but Karen wasn't done. The next week, another letter came, this time threatening legal action. A few days later, I found her on my porch, knocking like she was the sheriff of the town. She told me with a straight face that my property was under the jurisdiction of the Evergreen Homeowners Association, an HOA she just so happened to be the president of. I told her plainly, "I'm not in your HOA. My deed doesn't mention it. You don't have any power here." Her smile didn't falter. She leaned in and said, "Well, see what the judge thinks about that." And that's when I knew she was going to sue me. The day of the hearing, my stomach was in knots. I had never been to court before. Karen strutted into the room in a tailored suit, her arms full of binders. She looked like she had spent weeks preparing to crush me. I sat quietly at my table with a single folder, the deed to my house. When the judge walked in, the air got heavy. Karen launched into her speech before I could even open my mouth. She talked about community values, about how my violations were bringing down property values, about how everyone had to play by the rules. She even waved around pictures of my blue fence and my uncut grass like they were exhibits in a murder trial. When she was done, the judge turned to me. My heart was racing, but I spoke calmly. I slid my deed across the table and said, "Your Honor, my property is not, and has never been, part of any homeowners association. The deed makes no mention of it. I never signed a contract. What she's trying to do is enforce rules over land she doesn't own, and she has no legal right to do so." The judge read the deed. He furrowed his brows. Then he looked directly at Karen. "Mom," he said, "you can't enforce an HOA on someone who was never part of it. That's not how the law works." Karen stammered. She flipped through her binders, desperately pointing at maps and old meeting notes. She claimed the HOA had expanded, and that my home was within the boundary. The judge slammed his gavel lightly and cut her off. "Even if that were true, without the homeowner's consent, you have no authority here. In fact," he looked over his glasses, his tone sharp, "this HOA appears to have been operating in a way that oversteps its legal limits. I am dissolving this matter immediately. Case dismissed." Karen's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. For the first time, the queen of clipboards had nothing to say. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. My freedom, my peace, my little blue fence, they were safe. Final message. And here's the thing, this wasn't just about me versus Karen. It was about standing up when someone tries to control you with intimidation and empty threats. Too often, people like Karen get away with it because we're scared, because we don't know our rights. But when you shine a light on the truth, when you stand firm, the whole facade crumbles. So if you've ever felt trapped by someone trying to push authority they don't have, remember this story. Sometimes, the most powerful word you can say is no. And sometimes, the judge will back you up.